Hey there, Shortcuts. This is Steven here, and this is the first video for the Shortcuts price list that will go out this Wednesday, as usual, the 3rd of March at 9 p.m. Sydney time. If you are not part of the price list and would like to be, have a look in the description below and use the form to fill in your details, or wait to the end of the video and I'll give you my contact details. This is a pretty special week. This is a rare and collectibles week, which means that the records are a little bit more expensive, particularly on the second list, which is a list of first presses from the 90s and 2000s. But this list, this genre list, has got some of the greatest jazz and blues records in the history of Shortcuts. And in order to thank those of you who dig a little deeper, there's a prize this week. And the prize is this. It is a sealed Acoustic Sounds copy of The Unpredictable Jimmy Smith. And this features, actually, I can't remember who plays on this record with him, but it features his version of Walk on the Wild Side, which is worth the price of entry alone. This is the Acoustic Sounds series, audiophile vinyl reissue, mastered from the original analog tapes and pressed at QRP. Tip-in gatefold sleeve printed with high-grade board. This is the prize. So there are 12 records in this list, 12 records on the 1990s and 2000s list, so 24 chances. If you buy 3 records, you get 3 entries. You have a 1 in 8 chance of winning that record. So everyone who buys, that 1 in 8 if they all sell, which is unlikely. So your odds of winning this are very good. So if there's something you really fancy, you should dig into it. So there you go. Everyone who buys a record, for every record you buy, you get an entry, and there are 24 entries. All right. There was only one place to start. Now, whilst I said this is the greatest collection of jazz and blues maybe in the history of Shortcuts, it doesn't kick off with jazz and blues though. Albeit it does kick off with something linked to jazz in particular. This is The Low End Theory by A Tribe Called Quest. Not only is this my favorite hip hop album, it is one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time. I love everything about it. This sleeve is incredible. The way that they've done the notes on the back. This is the 1996 US press, which is renowned as one of the best, if not the best, presses of this. And the vinyl is fantastic. But you can see it's got the multicolored labels. It's in fabulous condition. So, why is this record so great? Well, A Tribe Called Quest came out of Queens in New York. I suppose right in the slipstream of Native Tongues, this collective of hip-hop geniuses who embraced the jazz and soul brothers from the past. So you're talking about De La Soul, who I'm going to see on Tuesday night here in Sydney. Jungle Brothers, and they carved this lane to make really clever lyrical rap feel effortless and warm and not preachy and not bombastic. So quite different to, I suppose, how they may have perceived the likes of Public Enemy. So you had Q-Tip, Phife Dawg, and Al Shaheed Muhammad. And between them, they manufactured, over the years, probably the greatest discography in hip-hop, in my opinion. And nothing topped their second record, The Low End Theory. This is a masterclass in marrying jazz bass lines with the architecture of hip hop, but really stripped down, never thin, always interesting and funny, sometimes controversial. There are some songs in here that even now I think, could have been removed. And those of you who know the album will know one in particular that I'm talking about. But there are some absolute standouts. The opening track is unbelievable. Check the Rhyme, Jazz We've Got. These US reissues, I have to assume that they had access to the master tapes because they sound so good. And it is often the case that they are completely destroyed because they were used very intensively by hip hop DJs. And this copy is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. This record is basically a permanent record of hip hop at that time, and probably was really the blueprint for jazz rap and what it became. It is minimal but rich and utterly, utterly brilliant. So how do you follow that? Well, I think you follow that by one of the greatest first presses in the history of shortcuts, and it's this. The Japanese first press of Headhunters by Herbie Hancock. Look at that sleeve. They just look like they're on a different planet, don't they? And to be frank, they made music like they were on a different planet. Herbie Hancock's concert here in Sydney a few years ago was still an absolute highlight of my life. Like, I just thought it was utterly amazing. And there's only a certain number of musicians over the decades that have left a signpost that almost everyone else in their genre goes toward. And Herbie Hancock did that. He kind of determined what jazz could be and somehow never, ever lost credibility and still made, which was at the time the biggest selling jazz record of all time. And he's still beloved to this day. It is thick with clavinet and synth and really rubbery bass and that repetitive hypnotic funk that just became his oeuvre. Just pick Chameleon and just let that thing roll over you. And this is the exact copy I have on my shelf. In fact, I've got most of these. In fact, nearly all of them are exactly the copies that I have. It is outrageously good vinyl. I've listened to the 200 gram recent repress, I think from Analog Productions. I prefer the Japanese first press. I just think it's magnificent. Now, this next record is one that I think I've only seen once before in this condition, and it's on my shelf. I had a Howlin' Wolf record last week that nobody grabbed, which kind of bemused me because he is a genius. In saying that, this I think is his best album, and Backdoor Blues, which was last week's, was his last album. Here's the other end of the spectrum. This is, I think it's his first. This is the Japanese PLP 838 copy of this record. Now, why is this so special? Well, at the time of this repress, just about every other country in the world chose to press the fake stereo kind of double down. And for those of you who aren't aware of this process, if you've got a mono record, it's kind of like artificially splitting the music so that there's a two-channel effect. But what that introduces is this spacey weirdness. It just doesn't sound right. And there are certain artists that have had this treatment over the years, and it is absolutely just destroyed the records. So the Sun Sessions by Elvis Presley is infamous. This record, the US represses of this record tend to be fake stereo, and you know what? They're awful. This is the original mono, and it is infinitely better in utterly fantastic condition. The Howlin' Wolf. I love the notes on the back. Howlin' Wolf was christened Chester Arthur Burnett, June 10th, 1910, in Aberdeen, Mississippi. But he will leave his mark for all posterity as, quote, the Wolf. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. And there he is. Absolutely stunning copy on the black chess label. And you know what's remarkable? Probably the second best blues album on the list. I think there's 4 blues albums on this list. I think this one's better. And this is the only Japanese press of this record. In fact, my copy is here somewhere, and I was going to show it is identical. This is the only Japanese press of what a lot of people consider to be the greatest blues album of all time. The only Japanese press of Albert King's Born Under a Bad Sign. Albert King, born Indianola, Mississippi, and later became a key figure in Memphis soul and blues, and one of the great architects of modern electric guitar blues. Left-handed, upside down, flying V, huge bends, sparse but incredible phrasing. It's just magnificent. And this is kind of like, this was his first album. This is kind of like a compilation of a whole bunch of singles and things that he did. But it has a gravitas to it that is just magnificent. So opening track, Born Under a Bad Sign. This follows right into 2 minutes and 31 seconds of the greatest blues of all time with Crosscut Saw. What a song that is. Personal Manager on side 2. Laundromat Blues. The final track on side 1, The Hunter, is just magnificent. Oh Pretty Woman, I love as well. 4th track on side 1. This is just brilliant, and I'm so glad that I've managed that they put another one of these Japanese copies in the box, because they are that good. They are that good. And I had a really quite expensive, fairly modern repress on, you know, the usual heavy vinyl, really nice sleeve. This thing smoked it. It smoked it. It wasn't even close. All right, I've got 2, 3, 4, 4 of the greatest jazz records in a row in the history of shortcuts. Starting with the record that started us off. This is an absolutely beautiful copy of Moanin' by Art Blakey, featuring Bobby Timmons on piano, Jamie Merritt on bass, Benny Golson on tenor sax, and unforgettably, the 19-year-old Lee Morgan on trumpet. Leonard Feather writes some of the best listening notes in the history of Blue Note listening notes. This album arguably is the best album in the history of Blue Note. It's in the conversation, if not just the best. It is about propulsion and beauty and joy. It is peak jazz messengers. It has some of the most recognizable themes in the history of jazz, particularly the opening track, Moanin', and the 3rd track, Along Came Betty. It has an Art Blakey miniature drum suite that kicks off side 2, called the Drum Thunder Suite in miniature. This copy is beautiful. It is absolute. I mean, it's as close to mint as you will ever get. Even the insert. If you don't have this record yet, and everyone should have this record in their collection. The reason I said started shortcuts is the very first box I ever had from Shinjuku had this record in it, and it may not be the first that I played, but it is the first that I remember playing, and it's because of that phenomenal Lee Morgan solo on the opening track, Bobby Timmons' majestic Moanin'. This, a lot of people argue with me. This record's better than Moanin'. This is another piece of Shortcuts royalty. This is another beautiful copy of Portrait in Jazz by the Bill Evans Trio, this time on Riverside Records. So this is, the other side of jazz in the US. Down the south you had, the folks born in Memphis and Mississippi, and here you have Bill Evans, born in New Jersey, of course. But he became as pivotal to jazz in the 50s, 60s, and 70s as just about anyone. A lyrical genius on the piano, and so playful and inventive and warm and inviting. This record is so intimate, but you can almost feel him pressing the pedals. It's just wonderful. And those Japanese presses are just magnificent. This record, though, I don't think it's the best jazz record ever made, but it could be the most enjoyable. Just in terms of pure pleasure, this is the Acoustic Sounds repress of Soulville by the mighty Ben Webster Quintet. Midwest, Kansas born, but Soulville is all atmosphere and vibe. But part of what makes it work is obviously Webster's huge tenor sax is center stage, but the piano and the electric guitar are magnificent. Honestly, is just such a beautiful record to listen to. Oscar Peterson on piano, Ray Brown on bass, Herb Ellis on guitar, and he is an unsung hero of this record. Stan Levy is still sealed and is the best I've ever heard this record. I actually think that Acoustic Sounds is better than the Japanese version I had, so I've now got the Acoustic Sounds as well. One of those forever records. This fourth record is more of a captain's pick, I suppose, in the parlance of some of our ex-political leaders. I don't think this record is on the list of the greatest Blue Note records of all time, but it is on my list of my favourite Blue Note records of all time. And again, this is another beautiful copy. This is the magnificent Tad Jones from Pontiac, Michigan. Another set of incredible Leonard Feather sleeve notes. I think that Tad Jones, Billy Mitchell, Barry Harris, Percy Heath, and this is key, Max Roach on drums. It is just a delight. It makes me smile. It's really kind of bebop, and it's not particularly sophisticated in some respects, but it is just so much fun to listen to. Bright horn lines, really smart, change ups. It just is swing. Is just great. Of all the records, this is the band I think that I maybe would have loved to have seen live. All right, I've got two more blues records, both of which I have never had before. I love this sleeve. This is I'm Ready by Muddy Waters. This, of course, Muddy, as many of you know, have listened to me over the years, born in Mississippi but forged in Chicago is how I describe it. Undeniable pillar of electric blues guitar. This is the guy who brought the Delta to the city. But this record was really his late career renaissance. And this is where The production sound is a bit more modern, a bit more forceful. And for that, you've got to thank Mr. Johnny Winters, who became really almost like his muse for the last kind of period of his life. So you got Muddy Waters on guitar, Johnny Winter on guitar, Walter Horton on harp, Jerry Portnoy on harp, Pinetop Perkins on piano. How good is he? Willie Big Eyes Smith on drums. 1978. This record, he sounds direct, he sounds dangerous, he sounds energized. It's just fabulous. And, you know, never had it before. And I may have had this, but I don't remember it ever with the Obi. And this is another kind of pretty special thing. This is the white label promo of Albert King's Truckload 11. This, again, you know, my favorite, you know, blues soul guitarist. This is, let's have a look. Joe Sample, Billy Fender, Charles Rainey. Again, white label promo, Japanese first press. Man, oh man. Spoiling you guys this week. Anything by Albert King is good, even late Albert King, but that's probably his greatest ever sleeve. In fact, no, probably, definitely his greatest ever sleeve. All right, I have 2 records to go. I'm not sure I've ever had this, but you know, maybe somebody out there might remind me. This is the first of our, I think this is the only Impulse record on tonight's list. This is the gatefold, I think it may be the first press, I'll have to check for Wednesday, of Africa Brass by the John Coltrane Quintet. This is his first record on Impulse. There's a guy who kind of came through North Carolina, into Philly, into New York, and was really there with Miles Davis as the defining figure of 20th century jazz period. I think there's no doubt about that. This, we've had Giant Steps and Blue Train, which was his only Blue Note record, but here is where he starts to move toward deeper, freer music. This is him on the journey to spiritual jazz. So this music is really dense, really hypnotic. It comes over you in waves. The reason I know it so well is it was the first record on VMP's Impulse box. So VMP's Impulse box set, Violently Pleased's Impulse box set, was one of the best things they ever did. And, you know, I miss those box sets, man. They were incredible. And they chose Africa Brass because it was the first record that he did for Impulse, which really became his spiritual home and the home of spiritual jazz in general. So pretty special record. And then finally, I thought I'd finish here because I couldn't have a list like this without Miles Davis. And this record has slowly but surely become pretty much my favorite Miles Davis record. This is the Japanese first press of Agartha. Look at him in that picture. This was when he was being massively influenced by Betty Davis, another hero of shortcuts. This is like John Coltrane. Miles Davis could never sit still. He was a shape changer. And this is his full-on electric jazz period where he played a tour of Japan. And most of those recordings were recorded. Pangea is another record from that era. Agartha, I think, is probably the best. It is hypnotic, it is groovy. It is not for everyone, that is sure. It is relentless. It's physical. It feels like funk, but funk that's been stretched into that fourth dimension between trance and noise, I suppose. It's unique. Nothing I know sounds like it. I think that's partly why When I'm walking the dog, it's often the choice I pick, even on headphones. It's really something. It is experimental, it is deeply weird, and it is also wonderful. So, as a reminder, if you buy any of those records, you will go into a draw where you will have a very good chance of winning a sealed Acoustic Sounds copy of Jimmy Smith's The Unpredictable Jimmy Smith, which is awesome. It features Oliver Nelson and all sorts of cool people. I think that's nice. Now, I know this is not a list that's going to be full of $10 and $20 records, but I think every so often we reserve the right here in Shortcuts to put something special together. And the 90s and 2000s list will follow suit. But if you would like to be on the price list, click on the form in the description below or drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Like, comment, please let me know what you thought of this list if you found it interesting. And yeah, speak to me, people. All right, thanks everyone.